Good morning. My name is Anthony, and I will be going over your Miranda rights. On November 16th, 1931, Abraham Lincoln stated to the Golden Book magazine that it's better to remain silent than to be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. So, to start out with some history, Miranda versus Arizona set forth what your Miranda rights are. It was told that a gentleman had picked up a woman in the city and took her to the outskirts of it, where he ended up raping her. And after that, he took her back to the street that she lived on and told her to pray for him. Um, they ended up, or a few days after this happened, Ernesto Miranda came in to voluntarily talk to the police because he had heard rumors that it was him. And in this time, they decided to do a police lineup and have the victims look and see if it was him, and multiple ones identified him. So they ended up telling him about this. So he ended up confessing in writing that he had done it. After he tried to appeal it, it ended up standing because he voluntarily came in. So that ended up giving his right through the Miranda rights. Miranda rights only apply in certain situations. If the police decide that you are an immediate threat to the community, they can arrest you without having to read you your Miranda rights right there at that moment. They can go ahead and cuff you up and take you downtown. If you get pulled over, they can ask you for your driver's license, where you provide your name and your address. I've seen videos on Facebook and stuff that they like don't comply with the officer, but in most states, you're supposed to provide your name. In the scenario where the Boston bombers, where they took the gentleman, the one that they didn't kill, they took him in for questioning. They thought that he might be able to provide information that was further threats throughout the community. So he didn't have his Miranda rights read to him until about 3 hours after the investigation had took place. Based on the Constitution, you are says what sets forth your Miranda rights. The fifth is to self-incriminate yourself, so you have the right to remain silent. Um, so that way you're not saying something that you'll regret in the future. And then in the Sixth Amendment, you have your right to counsel. So that even if you don't have the money, they will provide an attorney for you, so that way you have a fair trial. The Terry stop doctrine allows police officers to stop and pat you down. It's not as often now because they don't like to do stop and frisk because they can get into some legal troubles. But based on Terry versus Ohio, undercover detective was out just on duty, where he noticed two men that was just walking back and forth past a shop, and then so he decided to keep an eye on them. And then a third party came up, and he had thought that they were going to rob it or planning to rob out the store. He eventually, after so many hours, he went up to him to question him, where he ended up patting him down because he has that right to do that. Found weapons on him, so then he was able to get him for that. Even if though he wasn't able to charge him for robbing the store, he was able to charge him for having weapons on him. So sometimes people misunderstand what their Miranda rights are. When you get the only time that they will read them to you is like if you're being questioned or interrogated. Um, so your Miranda rights actually say that you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say or do can and will be used against you in the court of law. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed to you. And then they'll ask you if you understand your rights. You can remain silent, and they won't say, like, you just be quiet the whole time. but that does not invoke your privilege to your attorney. You have to specifically tell him that you want your attorney and that you're not going to speak to him anymore. If you don't say anything, they can continue to question you. So, a scenario I found was Burgess versus Tompkins. They had arrested him for a shooting, and then they tried to interrogate him after reading his Miranda rights. He never responded. He just sat there silent the whole time. And a few hours later, they asked him if he believed in God, and he never told them that he wanted his attorney. And all he answered was yes. And they said, "Do you pray?" He said, "Yes." And I said, "Do you pray to God to forgive you for the shootings?" And he said, "Yes." And since he revoked his Miranda rights, they were able to use that in court, and he ended up going to jail for shooting people. This is my website.